Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babylon Eyes match preview with myself and Sloth. Brentford away. The pressure is cranking up a little bit on us to start getting these points on the board now, Sloth. We're, 5 or 6 games in? So, this is definitely a game we need to be attacking and trying to get 3 points in, as is Ipswich next week. So, 2 big games coming up for Lopetegui and West Ham. So, we're going to break it down, what we need to be careful of with Brentford, where we can exploit them, and how we're going to get that success on Saturday against a very, very good team. So, if you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and all of that stuff. And let's get into it, Sloth. Firstly, let's just have a little bit of an overview of how the two teams have done so far. So, Brentford, they have 3 more points than us. They've scored 2 more goals than us, conceded the same number of goals, and they're just above us in 12th compared to our 14th. In the expected stats, we can see that they're actually slightly overperforming. So they should have around 5.54. We should have 3.78. Their expected goals scored is 7.65. Ours is 6.73. Their expected goals conceded is still quite high as well, just under 11. Ours is 12.52, which is, I think, the second worst in the division other than Ipswich, just to put that into context for you all. Obviously our expected position slightly lower in 17th and Brentford 14th. So Brentford have had a tricky start, as have we. They've played, I think, Spurs away. They've gone to City. So they haven't had an easy start. However, in their home games, they've looked a lot better. They beat Palace at home. They beat Southampton at home. So they're going to be wanting to make their stamp on this game, Sloth. How impressed are you with Thomas Frank as a manager, and how Brentford have been able to sustain their Premier League status, when they first came up? Because it's kind of gone under the radar a little bit with just how kind of consistent they have been.
Well, I think Brentford have really sort of shown just what a well-drilled side they are with the challenges they've faced. You look at Ivan Toney's betting ban last season and how they were able to cope without him in the side for a long spell. And I know they've got Igor is sidelined for a very long time, apparently with this cruciate injury that he picked up right after they signed him, basically. Right after he made the transfer. I know they signed him in the winter, and then in the summer he picked up this injury. But it's they're doing quite well, and for anyone who's watched them recently, they have scored some absolute screamers. They look dynamic. Thomas Frank is someone who I think I'd be really surprised if he doesn't get a move to a big club. Mm-hmm. He's the sort of manager I could see potentially going to Spurs if Ange doesn't pick things up and kind of get Spurs where they expect to be. I think he would be quite a suitable fit for them, and especially their model, because he runs that club so well in terms of who he looks to recruit. The sort of fees that they've started to pay are still relatively low, even for their big spends on players like Damsgaard, Igor, who we just mentioned, but also Sharda. They're not massively paying fees for these players, and they may take a little bit of time to settle and adjust, but Brentford have the tactical versatility and quality in their players already to make sure that they can do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that's a great point there. We spoke about Lopetegui, trying to be flexible against Chelsea, moving to a back 5. It's something he alluded to in pre-season, that he wants to be a flexible coach tactically. I think Thomas Frank can be that, absolutely, and we've seen it so far this season. They've gone to Liverpool, Spurs, City away, and they've adjusted how they played. I think they actually played a back 4 against Liverpool, but against Spurs and City, they moved to a back 3 or a back 5. Their home wins this season have actually been in a back 4 against Palace and Southampton. So we're probably expecting them to line up in a back 4 against us, especially with the emphasis on them being at home. It's a game they'll be expecting to win as much as we'll be expecting to win. So it does make for a very interesting game on Saturday. So firstly, off the ball, Sloth, I think, as you said, Thomas Frank will want his side to be very well drilled. They do have injuries, which we're going to get into as well. But off the ball, they are going to be, pretty compact if they do play this back 4, and they're going to want us to go wide, almost force us wide and back themselves in those 1v1 areas wide. And you can see here just how closely tied in together they are when they're defending. This is an example against Southampton. You can see the front 3 in this occasion. It's Mbeumo, Wissa, and think that might be Sharda over on the left-hand side there. But you can see that the midfield three very compact in there. The back line very compact as well, keeping very tight together. And that's something that they're probably going to want us to do. I think they will need to be careful with us because we actually do like to use our wide players quite a lot. Somerville, Kudus, if it's going to be those two either side of, say, Jared Bowen up top. There's a lot of 1v1 danger we possess there. Is that almost an area to get at for Brentford? As much as they're going to be compact in the middle, out wide is where we can actually, isolate their fullbacks. And, that's where we could maybe get our joy against Brentford on Saturday.
I think that's going to be one of the spaces that we try and target. I know that Palace look to do that. When they look sort of at their brightest, they were targeting those sides. And I think anyone who watched the Crystal Palace Brentford game, Brentford Palace game, because it was at home, Crystal Palace were pretty unlucky, and they could easily have got something from that game, and they really targeted the wide areas quite well. And I think if we can get, as you mentioned, Somerville, Kudus attacking those areas, cutting in and having room to cut in as well, it will create the space for players running in. And I think that's going to be something that we're really looking to drill in, because both attacks have a lot of pace, but if they're staying quite compact and we can, position our centre backs and get them dropping off a little bit, I think we're going to give ourselves a better chance of being able to contain their counters or any sort of pressing that they try and win the ball back from.
Yeah, 100%. And it is, if they are going to play that 4-3-3, we'd probably expect it to be Lewis Potter on the left, Mbeumo on the right. We'll touch on Mbeumo in a little bit, but one aspect we got caught out by last year at Brentford when we lost 3-2 away, which I'm sure West Ham fans watching will remember, when I think we went 2-1 up and we missed a 2-3 yard sitter with Antonio to go 3-1 up. So yeah, that happened. And then obviously in the second half, Brentford came back into it and scored 2 goals. One of them came from a long throw set piece routine. So it's going to have to be something we're switched on to, because we've seen that we've lacked concentration at the back, not just this season, but last season. And what Brentford do is that every single time they kind of fake this short throw. So we need to, to expect it. You can see they've already got 4 players in the box here, but they've got Visser coming short, Mbeumo as well. So they almost fake to come short, and then they reset. And you'll see the thrower about to throw it there, but he doesn't. He fakes it and then goes back and they reset. They then get into this position where they crowd the front post. And Visser, who we mentioned, who was just very close to the throw in there, he's almost just sneaking in while that crowd's happening, while they're distracted, to come into the center of your pitch here. And that's when they throw in the long ball. And it's something we're going to have to deal with airily, because they have the physical players to go up when they have their centre backs going up. And they're going to just be looking for a simple flick on here while the attention is diverted to the front post. And that's actually how they scored their third goal against Southampton. It ended up bundling over the line with Visser here on this occasion. But Visser was closer and shot in screenshot 1, where he's close to the ball for the short throw. It's faked. He rotates in. The focus goes to the front post, and he's there to kind of dissect in. So does that concern you a little bit, Slough, with how leaky we've been defensively in those types of situations? And when we're put under that type of pressure, we could potentially crumble in that situation. Who's going to have to stand up and be strong in that moment for us?
I think Kilman's going to be the one who really has to sort of show why we paid what we did for him. And I know he started his time here very well. And I think questions have kind of crept in over the last 2 performances. But if there's one thing that he can do, it is physically compete. And I think I would expect him to be very aggressive in terms of set pieces, throw-ins. And we're very lucky that Visser is potentially not playing, because I've backed him for a long time. He was someone that I wanted West Ham to buy while he was still at Lorient. And if there's one thing that Brentford aren't short of, it's these players who are very quick, aware of movement-wise of where things can break to, and sniff out chances. And I think that when you're looking at how recently our defence has been quite shaky or indecisive, those are exactly the kind of players you don't want to be facing, because even if it's just, say, a glancing header that doesn't quite connect and it falls short, the Brentford players will likely follow that up, and that's the last thing you kind of want.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. As well as that, obviously Mbeumo. I think you mentioned before off air, but that Vissa and Mbeumo have been Brentford's goal scorers this season. No one else has scored a goal from them in the Premier League. So very interesting that they're two. Maybe I mean we were definitely one-dimensional last season with a heavily reliance on Kudus and Bowen to kind of deliver those goals and get the GA for our team. And it's similar with Brentford this season. Vissa, as you mentioned, it looks like he's going to be injured for this game. So the reliance then kind of shifts to Mbeumo, or if Shard is going to be playing striker, Lewis Potter as well needs to start scoring some goals for Brentford. But let's talk about Mbeumo because he's a massive danger. We spoke about aesthetic bias off air as well. If I can't remember what you said, I'm sure you'll go into it. But just how good is Mbeumo and how careful do we have to be on Saturday of the quality he has?
Well, I think he's massively stepped up over the past 2 years. He was fantastic in the Championship, but when you look at the level that he's performing at this season, and particularly even the Tottenham goal is a fantastic strike, and I think he's showing that he can kind of drag Brentford forward and get them results. They seem to have challenges every single season, like I mentioned, and whether it's losing Watkins or whether it was losing Tony, they always seem to have players ready to step up, and Bremo is a great example of that.
Even Ben Rama at the time.
Yeah, well, and Bremo's pace, strength, and overall technical ability, he is an absolute handful. And we just mentioned the aesthetic bias, but I think if this was a guy who, had slicked back hair or waves, whatever they call it, and and was a bit easier on the eye, I think.
If you look like Jude Bellingham,
yeah, exactly. He'd be having clubs banging at the door, paying 80 million for him. I think he is a fantastic footballer and someone that, I think if West Ham are to lose Kudus to this release clause, he's someone that I would be quite happy for us to go and chase. And he's taken his game to another level, particularly last season. But the goals he's adding, I think, are going to be vital for Brentford. And look, I'm not saying they're going to be in danger of going down, but they were last season. And it's one of those things where if they can avoid that and get Igor back when he's fit, if you can have multiple goal scorers in your squad, it's massive.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got 4 goals from 5 games in the league this season. So I think his ball striking and technical ability is up there with the best in the league, especially from that right-hand side. There aren't many better. So we're going to have to be very, very careful of that. As you said, it's not the aesthetic bias. I didn't even realize he was 25, but until we were doing this, I thought he was like 28 or 29. But, he's a player that's very exciting. It's, fair play to Brentford. They've kind of managed to keep on to him. And he's been their main player really for the past couple of seasons. So we're going to have to be careful of that because he is a fantastic player. We saw it last season as well when they played us. There were a few moments I remember in the first half where he cut onto his left-hand side and, just missed or hit the bar or just come inside. He was a real threat that day. And I have no doubt that it's going to be a similar situation. So not only are we going to have to be very careful, but I think Emerson's going to have a really good 1v1 battle against him on Saturday and be really up for that task because it could get tricky for him because Mbeumo is just such a talented footballer. And as you say, technically really, really good. And that ball striking he has when he gets in and around that kind of 20 to 25 yard range, he will strike the ball. And, as you said, against Spurs, what a finish that was. And, Brentford's, they've had a very tough start to the season. They have lost away at Spurs, Liverpool City, but they've won at home to both Southampton and Palace. So, this is not an easy game for us at all. This is going to be a very competitive match. And now shifting the focus back to West Ham stuff, there's a lot of pressure now starting to build up. I mean, it's definitely inflated by social media and, how the world works these days. But Lopetegui is starting to come under pressure. And I think he knows that. We saw that from his post-match press conference against Liverpool. He understands what's going on right now. So now it's just about that, turning this into results and getting the performances clicking. How do we do that? Because we're going to be without Edson Alvarez after a stupid red card on Wednesday night. Yeah, we'll get into our lineup in a second, but what do we do? What's the game plan against Brentford on Saturday?
I think you've got to be realistic and play to your strengths. You know, we just mentioned about utilising our wide players, and if there's one thing that we've got at the moment that we've lacked for years, it's pace. I think with potentially Kudus and Bowen being our two main attackers, if you can put Somerville in there and give him the chance to really show why we signed him. I thought he was one of the brighter sparks at Anfield. I thought he was probably one of our better players, and though he was quite rusty in front of goal, and he has been, it's something that I'm sure will come good. Like if we can get those three getting forward and finding their finishing, I think that we'll be in a good place. But in terms of at the back, I think that's where we're potentially going to have to really see a big change. And you know, it's not good enough that we're shipping as many goals as we are at the moment. And I think whether or not that means we're going to have to sit Aaron Wan-Bissaka a bit deeper, maybe we play him on that left-hand side as opposed to maybe playing Emerson, or switch to a back five. I think something's got to happen where we actually just really examine what we're doing at the back, because it's clearly not working.
Yeah, I think we have to make personnel changes there as well. What we haven't seen yet is, again, we can get into what we'd maybe expect to see here, give or take, given the injuries and suspensions. But you'd expect Areola obviously to be in goal. Back four, we have not seen yet of Wan-Bissaka, Todibo, Kilman, and Emerson. I think this is probably on paper, when people think of our squad, our strongest back four. I think we have to see it now. I don't think there's much more room for Lopetegui to kind of integrate these players in. Obviously, Todibo got a long run out against Liverpool midweek, so he has to play. He has to play this game. And yeah, in terms of the midfield, obviously, it's difficult to say which midfield three he's going to go with, but you'd expect, obviously, Guido Rodriguez to come in for Alvarez, and then it's whether he's going to play someone like Carlos Soler or Souček with Paqueta. And then the front three of Somerville, Bowen, and Kudus. I don't think he'll play Antonio. I thought Antonio played well when he came off the bench against Liverpool, but I don't think he's warranted starting, you know, from the games he's started the games in. So yeah, that midfield three, Slough, of Guido, Paqueta, Souček. Again, it's like, oh, there's just no pace in there. It's just really slow. But then again, Brentford don't have that much pace in their central areas as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on both of us, for Brentford and us, to give the ball to Kudus, give the ball to Mbeumo, Somerville, and make things happen. You know, a moment of individual brilliance or a really good cross into the box to cause that chaos, or set pieces. I think that's going to be route for this game. Does that midfield three fill you with much confidence? Is that the midfield three you'd go with, or would you bring in someone like Soler for Souček? What would you do?
I think, do you know what? I would give Souček a chance here, because he is someone who I think can physically bully the Brentford midfield, but also he can be the engine room. And look, he is incredibly frustrating at times, but if you get people close to him and you know physically he won't be bullied, it's going to be something that, you know, I mean, bar Onana against Villa, you don't really see many players get the better of him like that. And I think I can't really see anyone in that Brentford midfield being able to do that. So I would be really surprised if he doesn't play. I suspect he would be the one we're looking to kind of play in a double pivot almost with Rodriguez, with Paqueta the more advanced of them. And
it definitely can't be. He can't play as the number 10 like he did against Fulham, like the most advanced. That won't work.
That would be embarrassing if we see that again. To be honest, he was so poor. And look, Paqueta needs to show what he can do as well, because this season he's pretty anonymous, and I think this midfield three will basically be hearing, you know, you've got to impress me, or next game against Ipswich, you know, that's the time to mix things up if you guys play poorly, because let's face it, whatever kind of lineup we put out against Ipswich, we should feel confident that we can get points at home. Again. And I would be surprised if we don't see that three.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that probably will be the three that Lopetegui goes with, and the front three of Kudus, Bowen, Somerville as well, just because Fulkirk don't expect him to be fully fit to start this game, even if he is on the bench or makes the bench. And, same with Antonio. I don't think he's going to want to start Antonio. He may do that. We don't know. We'll see. But yeah, in terms of Brentford, it's hard to predict their team, but just because of how many injuries they've got. Again, we're not sure how accurate this is, but I'm pretty sure it's quite relevant. So obviously, Visser's expected to be out. De Silva, Jensen, Nordgaard. These players could all be out for this game. Even players like Rico Henry at left back, Aaron Hickey, we don't know when they're going to be back. So a few of these players could be in the squad on Saturday, but it's hard for us to predict the Brentford lineup. But what we do know is Mbeumo is going to be in that team and he's going to be a danger. And, we really have to make sure we're on it. Even someone like Lewis Potter on the other side, he very good dribbler, someone we were linked to and, West Ham were trying to sign a few seasons ago. And yeah, it just didn't happen. And he's gone to Brentford. And yeah, we're just going to have to be careful. We've kind of highlighted where we need to exploit Brentford's weaknesses, what we need to be careful of. Score prediction, Slough, in a game that we massively need 3 points in.
I'm going to go with 2-1. I think we'll win it 2-1. And I can maybe see us having a squeaky bum time at the end where we're sort of trying to hold out and take the 3 points. But I definitely can't see us keeping a clean sheet. And I know we managed to do so at Palace, but I think we got very lucky there. So I think 2-1.
Yeah, I was going to say 3-1. I, as you say, I just think we're going to have enough quality in those areas. And yes, I mean, we could easily concede more than one goal. I think it would depend on how we line up and the approach we take, like you said. So yeah, I'm going to go with 3-1. I'm still relatively confident, even though we've been trounced 5-1 by Liverpool just a few days ago. So the confidence isn't there, but we're keeping the confidence on this channel. I think we've seen enough from the kind of analysis that we've done to know we can hurt Brentford defensively, and there will be gaps, especially in the wide areas for Kudus and Somerville to exploit in transition, or even when Brentford get back into that more compact shape that they like to do in a 4-3-3. So yeah, let us know down below in the comments. What are your score predictions for Saturday's game or tomorrow's game when you're watching this against Brentford? It's a tough one, but we need to get 3 points. Lopetegui is starting to get under a little bit of pressure now at West Ham, and the results need to start backing up with what he thinks is developing performances. So yeah, let us know down below your thoughts. Leave a like if you enjoyed the breakdown. Subscribe to the channel. And yeah, Slough, until the next one.
Come on, you irons.